I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Nyakuza from Simon. Nyakuza is a 2 to 4 player area control game. It's kind of area control. I think it's ultimately area control in a way, but a little bit of bidding, a little bit of area control, a little bit of trying to get your shops out there in order to get as many points as possible. This is designed by Nyakuza, and it's a reprint of an older title named Orongo, which I've never played, so I don't know the differences, but that's the original game for this. This is a complete reimplementation, new art, new this. I don't know if the rules are different, but let's go ahead and tell you about the game. The general idea, before we reach into this bag and grab these things, the general idea is you are trying to set up shops. Game end will be triggered when the last shop is set up. Depending on the player count, you're going to have a varying number of stalls, and whenever you have the opportunity to create a stall, which we'll explain in a second, you're going to take your stall and put it out on the board. Once you've done all your stalls, there's this final little boss stall, so to speak, the final stall in the game. Once you've depleted yours, the first person to build this stall wins the game. So ultimately, you're trying to manage your economy, your bidding, and your area control as you try to place out these stalls, which is where we're going to get into how do you build a stall. Well, you build a stall. Let's go ahead and grab a few tiles in the back because I think this is going to be essential to showing you how this works. Let's go ahead and put this down over here. And this is going to be a bit of a mid-game situation because we are just grabbing a bunch of tiles and putting them out. We have our 59 there. We have our 13 over here. We have our 53 over here. And then a 43 over here. And we can actually use the 43. Oh, no, we can't. We can only use the 43. Let's grab a few more tiles because it's going to be essential to show you how this works. We're going to place our 40 and then our 51. And then we have, there we go. That's good enough. There we go. Now we can show you how you build a stall. You see, what's going to happen is throughout the course of the game is you're going to be trying to get your boats out onto these tiles. We'll talk more about how that works shortly, but the important thing to note is once you actually have your boats out, depending on the configuration of stalls that your boats connect to, if you have the correct configuration, and you have a stall, and you have a boat on shore, you can create a stall. So for example, and this is listed in your player aid, if you have a boat on wood and a boat on the shore, you can build a stall. So in this case, we have a boat on wood, we have a boat on the shore, therefore we can go ahead and take one of our stalls and place it out onto the board and build that, but we also have to go ahead and use a coin, spend a coin from behind our screen to mark that this particular spot is done, meaning we can't build a stall using that wood anymore because, well, we've used it. It's been used to create that stall. So that's the core idea of how you create a stall. You need a boat on shore. You need that boat connected to a group of boats that otherwise have one of four possible configurations. You have your wood stall over here, so wood plus a spot on shore. You have the two kinds of octopuses over here, plus a spot on shore. The two fish plus a spot on shore. And then these two crabs. These two are identical. These are different. These are different. These are identical. Two crabs and a spot on shore. And all of those, whenever you have that configuration, you'll be able to go ahead and build a stall. Now, whenever you do so, you do need to put money on those tiles, which is both a marker that you cannot use that, again, in this case, the wood again, but also it is depleting your resources because money is going to be how you're trying to bid to place your boats out. So now you kind of understand how to win. You win by building this last stall. You build this last stall by building your first stalls first, which the number you'll get will depend on player count. They're going to divide the stalls up amongst the number of players playing the game, and then you try to get your boats out in order to have the opportunity to build the stall. Now that you know all that, let's talk about the actual turn order. You see, the turn order in the game is going to be every single round you're going to draw a bunch of tiles from the bag. Now the first round of the game, and this again depends on player count, but you're going to draw more the first round and a little bit less every other round. So from there, you're basically drawing tiles every round. Let's pretend you're playing a 3-player game. You'll be drawing 3 tiles at the start of the turn. So we grab these tiles and we add them to the board. We're going to take this 46, put it down on the matching 46, and yes, these are a little bit miscut on the copy I have over here. I don't know how prevalent that is. We have this 54 going down on 54 over here, and then we have this 28 going down, well, on 28. You see, every tile has an exact spot on the board where it's going to go, but then now once you see the new treasures of possible options out there, players are going to bid money to see who gets to place boats out first and how many. You see, players are going to grab a certain number of coins from behind their screen. You don't know how many you don't know how many coins players have, but you grab a certain number of coins, and every player blind bids those coins to see who's going first. If you bid the most coins, so for example, I bid 4 over here, if you bid the most coins, those are going to go into this little plaza over here where they may be taken by another player, and you're going to get 3 boats, and you'll have the option of placing out those 3 boats before other players. So you're getting the most boats and first pick of the new treasures that have come out on the board. If you bid less than that, the second most, you're going to take back your money, so your money will not be lost, but you only get 2 boats, and you're placing them second. Third player is going to get only 1 boat, and they're also going to take back their money, but then any anyone who bids 0, let's say I bid 0 money, you're going to take all the money that accumulated in this little harbor, which includes the money from this turn, but possibly money from future turns, from past turns as well. So again, your options are bid the most, lose your money, get 3 boats, go first. Bid second most, don't spend your money, and go ahead and get 2 boats, place them second. Bid less than that, get 1 boat, take your money back, and go third, and then if you bid 0, you're going to get the money from the harbor. If multiple players bid 0, they'll split that money. So you are trying to be mindful of when do you want to go first to get placement on those spots on the board, when do you want to spend more money, get those boats, get those first actions, get more boats, when do you want to spend a little bit less to possibly get fewer boats, but also not have to spend anything for those boats, and then when do you want to spend 0 in order to go ahead and retrieve money from the harbor in order to refresh your cash reserves, both because you're going to need to buy boats in the future, and also because you need to put money down on stalls when you actually mark them off, or to put them on the boats when you mark them off. So that's going to be the general structure of the game. So again, every round goes through a phase of first things first, you draw new tiles from the bag. Second things second, all players blind bid, you reveal the bids and see the turn order. Then players will place their boats out onto the various tiles on the board, and then if a player has accomplished a stall, they'll go ahead and place the actual stall on the board to show that they are 1 stall closer to winning. It's obligatory, assuming you can afford it, at least it's obligatory. If you can't afford it, well, then you don't. And you're basically going to do that until all players have built their stalls on the board, which again will vary depending on the player count. And that is basically how you play Nyakuza, which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. The rulebook is only 2 pages, which I guess back to back, so 4 pages of rules. Very easy to learn, to teach. Game time comes in around 30 to 45 minutes. I'm sure it can slow down if you really wanted to, or depending on your player count, but I'd say depending on the types of players at the table, but I'd say generally you're looking at 30 to 45 minutes for this game. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is the determination of value each round. You see, every round you're going to be looking to see what else enter the board, and at first it's kind of a little bit of a smorgasbord that's going to depend, the value of everything is going to depend on where things are connected to the shores and what other possible opportunities you can create. So for example, you can see over here, this set of 3 right here is a solid set, because if you can get these 3 right now, if you bid first and you locked in these 3, you're going to have, first of all, almost guaranteed options to place to a shore, because in order to place on the shore, you need to have access to a boat tile you already own, and having all these 3 here means you're probably going to be able to get the shore in a future round. You'll already have the potential for these 2, and then you'll have easy possibilities to get a crab, so this grouping over here represents 2 almost guaranteed easy stalls, 1 guaranteed stall, well, 1 almost guaranteed stall, and a second almost guaranteed stall. It's a good starter placement. But depending on how the board looks at any given point, and again, the board will develop as the game goes on, because at first it's just about what connects and what opportunities there are, but as the game progresses, it's going to be far more about how the board developed based on the other players placing their things down. You're going to get to a point mid-game where suddenly it's not just about possible connections, but it's also about denying other players opportunities, denying them placement on the shore, denying them connection points to other tiles. Is going to be a lot of trying to figure out your own internal value and also how to obstruct other players, ideally at the same time as you play. And then you're balancing and weighing that all up against how much money is it worth spending. You see, there's a mind game at play at any given point, because you spend a bunch of money, you can go ahead and guarantee placement on certain spots. But when you're all looking at the board, if multiple people are looking at this board right now, you might have someone who's willing to bid 6, 7 money for this, which means you might choose to bid 0, knowing you can be getting a pool of money, possibly money from the prior round. The problem is multiple players might be doing that. In fact, all players might be doing that, and you all might bid 0, hoping to cash in on somebody else's greed, and all of you end up getting very little money because you divide amongst yourselves. There's a constant determination of whether you're trying to go for the most and first placement, whether you're trying to go for 0 to get the money from the pool, or whether you're trying to go for some middle ground where you will be able to get at least 2 boats and second placement while not spending anything. But figuring that out, and also keep in mind this is a different game depending on the player counts. Playing this at a 4-player, 3-player, or 2-player is going to have a different economy of what you're trying to do. You see, at a 2-player experience, it's going to be a little bit more cutthroat, a little more tight, but you're also going to lose out on the opportunity to try to figure out how to get that second place bidding coming in just above somebody else, because it's only ever 2 people at play. But in general, you're trying to weigh up the value of the board, what's worth it to you, what's worth it to other players, and how you think they're going to bid, and therefore what the right bid is for you. So there's a good combination of board presence and manipulation, and then player agency over how to react to that board presence as you play. That decision on when to restock on money, because if you let yourself get too low on money, you'll have to bid 0 just to get something back into your pool, which is never a good idea. You want to try to get a little bit ahead of the game. You want to get ahead of the curve so you can actually go ahead and get that, that before everything is way too tight and you run out of options. And so you're constantly trying to figure out what the right play is at any given time. And it's a game that absolutely can be cutthroat because it is very, very common in this game. And again, it's going to depend what player count you're playing as. If you're playing it at 2 players, there's always that aspect of anything I do to hurt you equally helps me. So 2 players is an especially cutthroat game because you can do anything to just deny the other person a placement, and inherently it helps you because you've just hurt them. At higher player counts, you want to find those win-win opportunities. And by win-win, I really mean win-lose. A placement where it's going to help you and also get in the way of somebody else, because you don't just want to get in the way of somebody else at higher player counts because then other players will win. You will block Joe, but then Jane will win instead. It's not going to help you that much. So you want to try to be mindful of what's going to help you and hurt others all at the same time, and that's after you've gone ahead and tried to figure out what the right bid is. And so there's really a lot of decision space going on as you figure out what the board looks like and how to react to it at any given player count. As far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, the board is very static. The fact that every single tile has its exact place, yes, things will come out in different orders every game, yes, players will react to things in different orders, so there is definitely variability to the experience, but ultimately, it is a very static board as far as the patterns that will develop because every tile has its exact space. And then secondly, it does feel like a very abstract game. This is very abstract in terms of the way you're trying to just basically get placement on the board, and just trying to get a little cutthroat placement over other players as you go. It's a very static board and a very abstract game that you're playing here. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, I mentioned that 2 players can be very cutthroat. That might be a problem for you, because 2 players is a little weird in the sense that it's both more cutthroat and more open. You see, at higher player counts, at 3 and 4 players, you can have more opportunities where somebody else is in the way because more of you are just in the open seas. So at higher player counts, you're going to have a little bit more fighting for board presence. At 2 players, you're going to have a more open board presence, but a lot more cutthroat play because of that anything I do to you directly helps me. So that, I guess either player count can be a little frustrating depending what you're looking at. Again, higher player counts because less board presence, lower player counts because more cutthroat play is being made. And so in general, you just want to be mindful of whether that cutthroat play especially, because that's something that might be a turn off for you. If you don't like the fact that other players are going to deny you tiles, the 2-player game is not what I'd recommend over here. I'll also say that this is a game that you can get a little steamrolled if you don't play it well. This is one of those things where if you sit down to the table in the Yakuza, there's a lot of decisions going on about both how much to bid as well as where to place things to set yourself up for the now and for the future. And this is a game where I have seen people get completely stomped because somebody else at the table is playing well and they hadn't figured out the pattern. So it's one of those games that has a little bit of intuitive play going on. I think you can pick it up after a few games, but if you're not doing well at the beginning of the game, you will get stomped on fairly quickly. The good news is that it's a shorter playtime, so it's not that much of a cost overall. As far as final thoughts on Nyakuza, it's a weird one for me because everything Nyakuza does works well. It's a game that works well, that gives me decision making, that gives me a competitive decision making. It gives me a lot to think about with every single move I make, and it does give me a fun little area control game with a lot of either cutthroat at lower player counts or honestly cutthroat at higher player counts as well. It does a lot of things well, and it does give me a satisfying gameplay experience. I think where I'm left a little bit behind on it is the abstract nature of it, as well as the fact that it does feel very similar to many games Reina Knizia has designed himself. He has designed hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of games, and that means that sometimes you do get a little bit of overlap in the feeling different games of his can bring to the table. And Nyakuza's biggest fault, honestly, is the fact that I've played so many games from its designer that feel equally compelling in just different ways. It's another good game from Reina Knizia. It is a good game. I've enjoyed this, but it just there's so many games that feel very similar from Reina Knizia that any single one of them, the question is which ones stand out for me, and Nyakuza is an enjoyable experience that I like, but I don't know if it's one that stood out for me amongst those other designs. For me, I'm coming in at a 3.5 out of 5. It's a good game, it works well, and other games do similar things slightly better for me. Which brings us to recommendations. Speaking of other games that do this a little better for me, I'm going to start with Through the Desert. This game definitely has some of the DNA of Through the Desert, one of Reina Knizia's definite more classic designs. I think Through the Desert is excellent, and one of his better games that feels like this little area control puzzle of connecting things and all that. Similar, another one I recommend is Babylonia. Babylonia is another excellent one that, again, this is a good game, and I think Babylonia is slightly better at what it does. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.